All right, so today we're tackling a really huge idea. We're diving into a perspective that asks us to read one of the most influential books in the world in a completely different way. The question is, what if the Bible wasn't meant to be a literal history of events, but was actually a symbolic map of our own minds? Okay, let's get right into it.
So, the whole argument we're looking at today really hinges on this one powerful line from the New Testament. It basically sets up a fundamental choice, right? Do we follow the literal word, the letter, or do we look for a deeper symbolic meaning, the spirit? This distinction, this idea right here, it's the key to everything else we're about to unpack.
And look, this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. The source we're pulling from makes a pretty bold claim, a really provocative one, actually. It says that taking these ancient texts literally can have real, tangible, and sometimes even destructive consequences in our world today. That misunderstanding the symbols, well, that can lead people down a seriously dangerous road. So you might be asking, danger? What kind of danger? Well, the source gives a very specific, very modern example, how some people interpret the book of Revelation. They believe that for Christ to return, there has to be a literal, all-out war in the Middle East. And this leads to this totally bizarre situation, this paradox, where a message of peace is somehow used to actually encourage war.
Okay, so here's the big twist. This is the core of the whole alternative view. The source says, hey, what if those epic battles in Revelation, Armageddon, all that stuff, what if it's not about what's going to happen out there in the world? What if it's not a prediction? Instead, what if it's a metaphor, a really powerful one, for the war that's happening inside us? You know, that constant struggle on the battlefields of our own minds.
All right, to really get how this symbolic reading works, we need to break down an example. And the source uses a perfect one of the most famous images from the entire Bible. You know the one I'm talking about, the prophecy of the second coming, with Christ returning on a white horse. Now, if you're taking this literally, you just accept it. Okay, a man on a horse in the sky, got it. But if you're looking for that spirit, that deeper meaning we talked about, you have to ask a totally different question. You have to ask, okay, so what is the white horse? If it's a symbol, what's it a symbol of? Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating. The source starts connecting some dots, and you've got to follow this. It links that biblical white horse to Pegasus, the famous winged horse from Greek mythology. And think about it. Pegasus is a white horse. His dad is Poseidon, god of the sea, so he's technically a white seahorse. And here's the kicker. He's sacred to the goddess of memory. Remember that part. It's important. And then, bam, the next link in the chain. We go from mythology straight to biology. Get this. Inside your brain, right now, there's a part called the hippocampus. It's actually white in texture. And what do you think hippocampus means in Greek? It literally means seahorse. And what's its job? You guessed it, memory. I mean, come on, the parallels are just wild. So here's the big payoff for that whole exercise. When you layer all those symbols together, the white horse, Pegasus, the hippocampus, the whole idea of the second coming totally transforms. Suddenly, it's not some big event in the sky we're all waiting for. It's something that happens inside of us. It's a renewal of your mind, right? It's about tapping into your own memory, your own white seahorse, to find a new level of understanding. Okay, let's try another one. This is our second big case study, and for this one, we're going all the way back to the beginning, the Garden of Eden. And yeah, we're talking about the talking serpent. Everybody knows that story. But just like before, the source is telling us, don't look at the literal snake, look for the symbol. And the logic here is pretty similar. So step one, think about the shape of a serpent. What does it look like in the human body? Well, the source argues it's a dead ringer for the human spine. And the spine, in this way of thinking, represents our physical self, our kind of lower nature. So from there, it's not a huge leap to say the voice of the serpent is really the voice of that lower mind. You know, that little voice inside your head. So the big idea here is that the serpent that tempted Eve, it wasn't a real snake. It's a symbol for that inner voice of temptation that, let's be honest, we all have. It's that voice that's all about material stuff, physical desires, what the Bible calls temptations of the flesh. It's basically the conversation you're having with yourself. The tempter isn't out there somewhere. It's inside you. All right, this is where it all comes together. This is kind of the climax of the whole argument. We're going to put these two ways of reading, literal versus symbolic, right next to each other. And you'll see how they don't just create different beliefs, they lead to completely different actions with actual real-world consequences. And this one verse,
This is the ultimate test case. The source says how you read this single line tells you everything you need to know about which path you're on. Is it a physical command, or is it a psychological instruction?
I mean, just look at the difference here. The literal reading, that leads to people actually handling venomous snakes in church, a practice that still happens and can and does kill people. The symbolic reading, well, that says taking up the serpent means taking control of your own lower nature, mastering your emotions, your impulses, so they don't control you. The outcomes, I mean, they're night and day. One is about physical danger, the other is about psychological growth.
So you see, the big point the source is making is that a literal reading isn't just dangerous, it's a massive missed opportunity. Because when we get hung up on a literal talking snake, we totally miss the point. We miss this incredible psychological lesson about our own inner voice. We start blaming some external devil instead of looking inward and taking responsibility. And that can lead to personal tragedies, like we just saw, and even, as the source claims, global catastrophes.
Okay, let's bring it all back home now. Because this whole way of thinking, it's not just some academic exercise about ancient texts. No, the whole point is to make this personal. It's about bringing the focus right back to that battle that's going on inside you right this second.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. From this point of view, the Bible isn't a history book you're supposed to just believe. It's a psychological guidebook you're supposed to use. All those famous stories, Adam and Eve, Christ, Armageddon, they're all maps. They're maps of the conversations we have in our own heads, of the choices we make between our better angels and our inner demons, every single day.
And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started, with a choice. The source argues that this inner serpent, this voice of our lower self, it doesn't just whisper personal temptations. It can whisper much bigger, more dangerous ideas, ideas of war, of division that play out on the world stage. So that leaves us with one final, very personal question for you to think about. What is your inner serpent telling you? And maybe the more important question is, are you just listening, or are you the one in control?